Okay, folks, time for same stuff, different day. Different cold day in hell, that is. Yes, we're looking at Matt Martin's Snowman, A Cold Day in Hell. This was published through Ethan Van Sciver's All Caps Comics. And what I hear about it through this tweet by Mad Ruth is that Snowman features a cold day in hell, 72 pages, including Snowman #1, remastered with colors by Def Colorist, that's Kyle Ritter, and new lettering by Matt Martin. The line art is insane in the new book, and the updated colors and lettering to issue #1 are next level. That is the high praise that we've got for Snowman, A Cold Day in Hell. But does it really stand up to scrutiny? Well, let's take a look at this particular panel that was provided by Mad Ruth. This is actually a contrast and comparison between the old version of Snowman, the one that was originally published, the first appearance of Snowman, and the new remastered version. And as you can see, there are considerable changes, especially where the text is concerned. There's also artistic changes that aren't quite as obvious, but they're there. And we're going to go over some of these in our examination of the remastered page from Snowman #1. So, looking at the first triptych of panels, we have a guy named Mick who is standing over the corpse of a Native American inside a burial mound. And the first thing I notice in the first panel is that there is this weird kind of starburst around the Native American skull. And I looked at that and I was thinking, is that supposed to be like the remnants of the Native American's headdress? Is that what he's wearing? Is maybe he was a chief of some sort? But then I look from the opposite angle that's provided in the second panel, and I see that that's not actually on his head. It's on the wall behind his head. And so I wondered if it was some sort of metallic sculpture instead. So I had to go back to the original artwork, and it turns out that it is a plant of some kind that has been sustained by the sunlight that's been peering through the holes up in the ceiling. Because I was thinking to myself, wait a minute, if that's a plant, why hasn't it decayed over all this time, especially since it's in the dark? But it wasn't originally in the dark. You actually have these rays of sunlight coming in the original artwork. Now, those rays aren't there in the new artwork, and so that plant's in the dark, and so I'm thinking that plant should have died and decayed by now. In any case, it's just part of the scenery, and it doesn't need to be there. It's just kind of clogging up the works. There's no reason to have that. Unless maybe somebody's going for historical accuracy, but how many people have actually been inside a burial mound? Nobody's going to know the difference, is what I'm saying. So I would just get rid of that just to avoid confusing the reader. Now, in the next triptych, after Mick goes and steals the jeweled necklace off of the corpse, we have him crawling out of the burial mound to meet his friend Jim. And Jim says, "It's about damn time I was fixing to leave your worthless ass out here." And then we see Mick hand the jewels to Jim, saying, "Check it out, Jim, I found this on a dead body." And so from the placement of the arrow from the dialogue balloon, we know that Mick is the guy up top, and Jim is the hand on the bottom. But when we get to the next panel, that becomes problematic. Because if you look at this hand that supposedly belongs to Jim, that's a right hand. And you've got Jim holding the jewels in his left hand in the next panel. And see up top that that is a left hand grasping the jewels out of the hand that's below. This does not seem to necessarily be a handing down of the jewels into somebody's, outraised palm. This seems more like somebody taking the jewels out of the guy's hand on the bottom. Well, the dialogue doesn't indicate that, so I had to go back to the original artwork. And the original artwork is completely ambiguous. There is no dialogue in the original artwork, so all you really have to go by is the art. And the art speaks to those two hands being the same. So what I think happened here is that Matt Martin looked back on his old art and he got confused by it. And where he thought Mick was the guy up top and Jim was the guy on the bottom, that's actually backwards. Jim is the one up top grabbing the jewels away from Mick. So all we need to do to fix this, it's an easy fix. We just need to change the direction of the dialogue pointer to the other direction. And now we know that, Jim's the one up top and Mick is the one on the bottom. Not a hard fix at all, but it's already seen print. So we have Jim throwing the jewels over his shoulder, and Mick crying out, "What are you doing?" And now we have Jim, calling Mick an asshole and hitting him. No, wait. Who's hitting who here? Because the reason I'm thinking that the guy throwing the punch is Jim is because those gems that were thrown over Jim's shoulder, those are the eyes of the Snowman, aren't they? And if so, shouldn't they be behind Jim? And so wouldn't that make the guy throwing the punch be Jim? But no, that's not correct. Now, one of the complaints that I have about the next level coloring is that given you have all the colors of the rainbow to work with, you decided to make these two guys' outfits practically identical. Why would you do that when you don't have any other real way of distinguishing these two guys from each other, except for the fact that one wears his hat forward and the other wears his hat backward? That's really, seriously, the only way that I'm sure that Mick is the one throwing the punch at Jim. So now we've got the Snowman has materialized, and we have this caption saying, "As Mick turns." Why does Mick turn? The Snowman hasn't made any noise. He's just formed behind Jim. I mean, there's no sense of his presence. It's like all of a sudden Mick's turning for what reason? In fact, Mick just punched a guy right in front of him. Is Mick really going to turn his back on the guy he just punched? So why did Mick turn? Moreover, does anybody notice that eye is not just an eye? It's also got a reflection in it, and it's really, really hard to see. In fact, you're probably going to blink and miss it, and don't forget, you're looking at an oversized version of this, and even then it's pretty hard to see. Here is what it looked like in the original artwork. So you could see that both Mick and Jim are reflected in the artwork. Now, the effect that has is that it makes it as though these two boxes really ought not to be on this page, because we're just hearing about Mick turning and laying his eyes on the last thing he'll ever see, when the next page is where he lays eyes on the last thing he'll ever see. That's clear from this. I mean, this just winds up being Mick being in shock, which is not a very interesting panel, even though it's a splash page. Now, if you go back and you look at Snowman #1, the original, yeah, those captions, those two captions from the prior panel, was this one caption on the splash page. Moreover, there was more text on the splash page than that. Apparently, Matt Martin thought none of this was really useful, except it kind of was useful, in that it distracted us from the fact that this guy is paying no attention whatsoever to a giant monster. And moreover, it's a giant monster that the guy has seen. That guy's got eyes on the monster right here, and now he's ignoring him in the next panel. Yeah, that makes sense. Moreover, do you notice the K7 is not reversed in the reflection? That should be a backwards 7 dash backwards K. Now, this is a little bit more forgivable in the new artwork because you can't see crap of Jim's face in the newly colored artwork, but still, it's kind of jarring that this guy's got a giant monster right in front of him. The one guy's freaking out. He doesn't even take any notice of it. But probably the most jarring thing on this page is the fact that he removed all that caption text from the original version, only to lay in all this crap. We've got these things called title pages now. You do understand that, right? And a title page can take up all of this stuff that you are now overlaying on top of your art. If the objective is to let the art breathe, don't put all this crap on it. So we've just covered, get this, we've covered 2 pages of Snowman #1, the remastered edition. And let's do a recap of all that we've found. We've got this plant thing that really doesn't need to be there. We've got a dialogue balloon that's pointing in the wrong direction. We've got gems that don't seem to be behind the correct character. We've got characters who are dressed too much alike to tell them apart easily. We've got a reflection that no longer seems to be a reflection. That makes it seem like all of this captioning needs to go on the next page. And on that next page, you've got a guy not even paying attention to the giant monster. And you've got all of this indicia crap covering up the artwork. You know, I'm waiting for the day when I can come to a book like Snowman, A Cold Day in Hell, and I can just read it. And I can just go through it, leaf through it, and feel like, oh, this is an enjoyable read. There's nothing wrong with this comic. But it is not this day. This day, it sucks. So, same stuff, different day, as far as Comicsgate is concerned. I mean, I have yet to see a comic that rises to the level of quality I would like to see from an independent comic. And I just looked at 2 pages of Snowman #1. I ain't picking this up to look up anymore. So hopefully I'm going to, one of these days, run across somebody who has done something good enough that I don't feel like I even need to comment on it much. But today is not that day. Today it's just SSDD. Thank you very much for watching. I'm Mike Partika. I hope this has been informative to you. Maybe it'll help you to correct some of the errors in your own comics before they see print. That's the important part. You need to get somebody with editorial experience or a keen eye for editing, somebody who's a long-time experienced comic book reader, to look at your book before you send it to print, because once it's in print, you're not getting away with anything. Thanks again for watching, and I will talk to you later.